Hey there, fellow citizens of the internet. Welcome to the Moses Kabandana Podcast. And today I have with me, I'm gonna totally butcher the name here, but I'm just gonna go with the last name, Mr. Ekpeki, right? Ekpeki. And welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. Pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And so, how do you pronounce your first name? Because I'm gonna choke trying to do it.
Oghenechovwe.
Og Oghenechovwe. That's
Yeah,
not
see,
bad,
that wasn't
actually.
so bad.
No, Oghenechovwe. Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's just
And
like
you, well,
Kabandana.
yep, yep, yeah. Oghenechovwe. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Kabandana is pretty bad, actually. Like every time I write my own last name, I have to pause a little bit to see if I have an extra A in there or not.
Uh,
So, but we're um well, one, you said you're calling from Lagos, Nigeria, right?
yeah.
Are you from there? Did you grow up there? What got you there?
Okay, I'm from the southern part of Nigeria, and Lagos was our former capital, so it has a bunch of things. I came to school here, University of Lagos, and I basically just live here after school. So, yeah, but I come from southern Nigeria, Delta State, Warri to be precise. So, yeah.
Mm, okay, nice, nice. And okay, so we're just gonna dive right into it. You are an author, right? And I'm trying to be an author, right? And the idea of writing a book is just it terrifies me. So maybe I shouldn't think about writing. So what interested you into telling stories and writing books?
Well, it's you know what Stephen King said, imitation precedes creation. It comes from first of all
Mm,
consuming a lot of it, from being in love with stories. I used to read a lot. I used to read a whole lot, and I used to brag about
yeah,
reading growing up, like, oh, I've read this, I've read that, and I've read that. And then one day my elder brother just sat me down and said, "Yeah, you've read all the stuff, but have you written anything? Have you created something of your own?" And that was the first
yeah.
time it occurred to me that I could be Stephen King. I could be like all the amazing people I was reading. It had never occurred to me before. So my writing comes
Mm,
from a place of loving stories, of wanting to tell stories of my own, So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And and so once you start writing stories, well, where do stories come from? They just, I mean, is it a collection of all the other stories that you've read, and then you pick out certain inspirations from those? Like how does a story come to? Is it like a thought? Like I don't, yeah.
It's kind of like if someone tells you a story. Hey, I
Uh,
suffered. I went through this. I went through that. I went through that. You know what happens immediately after?
nope.
You're like, oh, I can relate. By the way, this kind of thing also
Mm,
happened to me. And then you tell your own story of the same similar incident that happened to you. So we all carry stories inside us. So it's not that we're
yeah,
telling stories of other people or of all the stories we've heard. It's more like those stories spark up the stories within us and they inspire us to tell our own stories that we carry inside us. But everyone carries a story, multiple stories inside them that make us up.
yeah. Well, so but you write sci-fi, science fiction.
Yes.
So why science fiction? What led you there?
I mean, it's a way of seeing the world. I write speculative fiction actually, of which science fiction is a part of it. Science fiction, fantasy,
Yeah,
horror, and a bunch of other things.
yeah,
And these are all stories that happen to us. Fantasy is about spirituality. Science fiction is about essentially the science that we have around us, taking a little bit further, and horrors are things that happen to us or that we fear will happen to us. So those are just ways of seeing the world. They're just perspectives which we're all capable of, which we all carry inside us. Some people like to look at the world
yeah,
directly. We call them realists. And some people like to look at the world through metaphors. So
yeah.
yeah, that's all science fiction is. It's a metaphor for
Mm,
what we
mm,
have.
yeah. Do you keep up with the world? Well, I'm assuming that you do, given that you write science fiction. But like, do you keep up with all the new gadgets and technologies and all that?
I mean, yes, I do. I mean, I think the average person does. I'm not exactly a scientist or anything. I mean, you don't need more than
Yeah.
average interest and a lot of imagination. That's where the fiction comes in. For example, everybody uses social
Okay.
media. So science fiction
Mm,
basically
mm,
just imagines a new kind of social media and how it interacts with the world. So it's just the basic science we all have, we all see around us, taking a bit further by imagination.
yeah. Well, so then, so speaking of imagination, are you more optimistic or pessimistic about the civilization in general and the effects that technology is gonna have on us?
Well, to be honest, I wouldn't call it pessimism. I would call it projection. I like to project
Mm,
about the current state, the things that we're seeing today, taking further, it's all going to lead down a negative end. For example, climate change, the level of industrialization and capitalism, the way it completely disregards nature and life and health. Look at our use of
mm,
AI in the arts, even in
yeah.
tech, for swatting, for mimicking people. So it's more about seeing where we're going, and it's not down a positive road. So my science fiction tends to be dystopian at times and to portray what you might call
Okay.
negative events, but it's only to actually provide warnings about the current state of things and where it's headed.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. I'm more on the, I guess, optimistic side, not
Yeah, it's
utopian
all it's
side,
all
but
needed. I mean, we need all of it. We just have to balance it out. So there's you and then
right,
there's
right,
me. We
exactly.
all have to tell our stories. All our stories matter.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because like when I think about the future and technologies, I kind of use the last 50 to 100 years as examples of how technology has benefited the average Joe, the average folk, the average person. And so, but if I was alive 100 years ago, I might have had a dystopian view of technology. But then when you look at it in a longer time horizon, then it's like, well, the average person now has electricity, and the average person, like our ability to produce, at least on the western side of the world, to produce consumable calories.
I was going to
We're,
ask
we
you
have
that.
way
Does
too
the
many
average
calories.
person have electricity though?
What was that?
I said I was going to ask you that. Does the average person have electricity though?
If the average
Yeah.
within the framework of does technology in the longer time horizon makes things better or worse, I would say yes, it makes it much better
Yeah,
because
no,
like
no,
if
I
went a
know, I
hundred
know. I
years
was
ago,
asking
the
about
idea of having
electricity
electricity,
specifically.
right?
Does the
Yeah,
average
and
person
and
have
that's what I'm
electricity?
going at. It's like in comparison to 100 years ago, it's not even a question. It's 100% yes. It could get a lot better, right? Like right now, like today. Um, like even in some places, you might have electricity for like I don't know 2 hours a day, and then it might go off.
Exactly.
But if you compare it to 100 years, but according like if you compare with like 100 years ago, the idea of even having electricity for someone out in
Yeah, that's
away from
fair.
a central city, it wasn't even right. So that's the perspective that I'm trying to bring into the equation when compared to a long enough time horizon, right? Is that technology eventually makes its way into the lives
Yeah.
of the average person.
Yeah,
Um,
my point is that
but
it's not
anyways,
evenly
not to go off
distributed.
a different.
Advancement,
True. That
technology
that
is
is
not
very
evenly
true. That is very
distributed.
true.
Yeah.
Very few things in life are evenly distributed,
Yeah.
right? It's like talent, for example. Talent. You have people like you that can. create stories that captures the way that we live, and in a very profound way. And then you have someone like me that cannot even like write 2 paragraphs without having a seizure. And that's not evenly distributed. I mean,
I
you're
I
way
think we
way
can all
way more
create
talented
stories.
than I am.
I disagree with you. I think you're creating stories right now,
Eh,
just in a different
well, but
medium.
there's a reason why some people are authors. Fair, okay,
And some people are
good point, good point.
podcasters. I
But in
need
the
you,
medium,
right? There's a reason why I'm here. I'm not here because it's not important. I'm here because it matters
fair,
to me.
yeah. Right, right. But within the domain of your competence, writing, you are way more talented in that domain than I am. That talent
Yeah,
is
everybody's more
not evenly
talented in some
distributed.
area. Yeah, but everybody has something,
Right, right.
which everybody
So
has
so
some form
we're,
of talent, which is different from electricity.
yeah, well, but wait. Here we're talking about the evenly distribution of something, right? So we're seeing that nothing is evenly distributed, right?
Yeah,
So
fair,
so
fair.
uh, you'll have the LeBron James of the world, and then you'll have the
DC
Stevie Wonders of the
Ronaldo.
world. They're both
Yeah.
talented, completely different
Mm-hmm.
talents, right? But
Yeah.
within the domain of basketball, there's no way that Stevie Wonder is gonna be as talented as LeBron James. So nothing is evenly distributed, even intelligence. So,
Okay.
anyways, that's a different tangent there. And well, speaking of tangents, what's your earliest memory that you can think of? Like as far back as you can think of, like what's your earliest memories as a kid?
It was I was a young angry baby. That's the earliest I can remember. I was angry even as a baby. All the other kids used to run away when they see me
Yeah, of course.
coming. They used to call me bitey bitey. I used to bite apparently. And when they see me coming, they run
Yeah, of
away and they
course.
say bitey
Okay.
bitey is
Okay.
coming.
Huh. Wow. What what got you so angry? Like what happened to you in the stomach that got you so angry?
I don't remember. Ah.
Yeah. Hmm. Wow. I don't I was the opposite. I was a quiet kid. Like you might not even know that I'm there. Huh. Interesting.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, it's I think my nickname was the calm one, or he who is calm. It sounds as
Wow.
some interpretation of that.
It sounds like he who
Yeah, that kind
remains.
of trans.
Did you watch Loki?
Oh, no, no. I just finished it. Yeah,
Oh,
like 2 days ago. The second season. Yeah, he who remains. Oh, no,
yeah.
no. Uh,
I'm enjoying
but
this
well, okay.
conversation too
So
much. I'm not sure I'm supposed to enjoy it this much.
no, no, you're supposed to. It's a conversation. That's the whole point of this podcast is to try to have I mean, obviously, like we're not in the same physical space, so you have some element of humanity just removed from it. But the idea is to have like
Yeah.
fruitful conversations that just we end up learning something from. So quick question then, from your perspective as an author, what is one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about writing a book?
First of all, that it pays a lot of money.
Mm.
I mean, it can, but it doesn't
Yeah,
always.
yeah.
Most of the time, it doesn't actually. Um,
Mm, mm.
yeah, I guess that's like most things.
Okay.
I mean, to push a thing to the profitability point, it takes a lot of work, and it's a French thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm,
that's the
mm.
first thing.
And okay,
Yeah,
but you still
and
encourage people to write.
I mean, not exactly. If you want to, I'll say go for it. I mean, yeah, I do encourage some people to write. Some people have the aptitude for it. Some people seem like they are
Okay.
born to be storytellers, although I believe everybody can be, but I think some
Yeah,
people need
yeah.
to be, you know.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what the biggest misconception is that you're gonna make some money into it. But what about the process of actually writing, right? So I'm in the process of writing. well, I haven't even started writing yet. I'm just collecting material, and
Ideas. Yeah.
I
Okay.
I'm
I
afraid of
think
writing. I'm afraid of writing.
yeah.
So, uh,
I, I think another misconception I would mention is people think ideas make a story. Ideas do not make a
okay.
story any more than ingredients make food. You know,
Mm, mm,
it's effort
yeah, yeah,
that makes a story. If you take the ingredients together and you put it together in the right way, then you have food. But just going to the
right.
market to buy a bunch of ingredients and leaving them on your shelf does not give you
Mm. They're not gonna
does
make
not give you
themselves into
food.
food.
Yeah,
I think I've lost you there. Oh, there you go. You're back. I had
yeah,
lost you for a second.
yeah. Can you hear me now? Yeah, can you hear
So
me?
the ingredients do not. Yeah, yeah. Now I do. Now I do. The ingredients do not make the dish.
The head.
Perfect. Got it.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's yeah.
So
So people think it's the idea. That's why you have a lot of people offering ideas like, oh, if I give you this idea for the story, can you write it? No, nobody cares about your idea. Go write your story yourself. If
mm,
your idea is so magnificent,
right, right. Yeah, yeah. Ah,
that's why you can't
okay. Well, because I
copyright an
was I was
idea.
actually yeah. Uh, well, that makes sense because I was talking with a few months ago. I was talking with an agent when I was thinking about the process of writing and whatnot. And at the time, I was thinking of hiring someone to do the actual writing, right? But I would provide all the material, right? I would provide all the storyline, the people, and everything. Uh, and the guy's like, well, that's a lot of people do that, right? To hire a ghostwriter, but this is your story, so it only makes sense that that you should be the one
I
that
mean,
write
it's not
that
that you
writes it.
can't do that. It's not that you can. It's just like you can hire a cook. You can go to the
Mm,
market, buy all the ingredients, and get someone to cook it. But then you have to
yeah, yeah,
pay them.
right,
It's
right.
the same thing. You can get a ghostwriter and tell them your ideas and give them a ton of money and they'll write for you. That happens. But you can't
Mm,
say, here's my idea, write it, and then let's share the proceeds. That
yeah,
don't work
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
So
exactly. Right. Huh. Well, so you're, if I'm not mistaken, you're can you touch more on the is it Afro-Pantheology or something like that?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
okay, like
Afro-Pantheology.
yeah, like, well, first of all, like what is that? And then because like I grew up in Mozambique, and I remember like watching way too many Nigerian movies that had to do with witches and stuff, and
Yes.
that would scare the hell out of me. That would scare the
That's
hell out of me.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, yeah. So can you let us in into like those stories, and how does that differentiate from let's say the sci-fi stories that we're accustomed to here in the West?
Okay, okay. So um this is a bit okay. Have you heard of the term African traditional religion?
To some degree limited, but
Exactly.
I was young, so yeah.
There's a reason why you haven't heard of the term. It's not a common term. It's been stamped out. African traditional religion are
Mm,
the indigenous religions that Africans had before slavery and colonialism. Now, Christianity
yeah,
replaced majority of those religions, Christianity and Islam. So our religions, our spirituality, our way of life was washed away. Now,
yeah,
um, your spirituality, your religion carries your stories. Stories are conveyed in religion, right? Do you understand that? Stories and
yeah,
culture are
yeah.
carried in religion. So when those stories are taken away, parts of who we are, parts of who we are, our vital stories that make us up, our cultures are also washed away. That was a deliberate act of colonialism. It was deliberate.
Mm,
They were, our religions were deliberately replaced to make us more like the colonizers, to make us assimilate, to change us, right?
mm,
So
mm, yeah,
Yeah. A lot of the Western stories that we call fantasy and all of that, what we call fantasy, a lot of it are not actually fantasies. A lot of what you watched growing up, the witches, the juju men, the native doctors, they are all those vestiges of our stories that we are trying to preserve.
Yeah, yeah.
And by calling them science fiction or fantasy, we're sort of eroding the importance or the value because they are not fantasies. They are culture, they are
Mm,
religion, they are part of us. So we need a different name that acknowledges those things for what they are instead of what our colonizers say they are.
mm,
Because what you call a thing
right.
matters, it defines it. So Afro-Pantheology means religion and bodies of knowledge. Afro means African. So Afro-Pantheology essentially means stories of African religions and bodies of knowledge, right? So
Yeah.
it's a push for us to have a different perspective that sees our stories as what they are originally, as religion, as
Mm,
culture,
mm,
instead of what our colonizers say they are, instead of fantasy, instead of mythology, instead of god punk. It's a move it's a drive at reclamation of who we are, of all those lost pieces of what we are. So by telling those
yeah.
stories, we familiarize ourselves. By telling those stories and calling them what they are, we familiarize ourselves with those things that were part of us, that were being removed. We become more ourselves. That's the point of
Mm.
Afro-Pantheology.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. A lot of the traditions and, as you put it, religion, they get passed, or at least even traditionally, they would get passed down orally, right? Because you couldn't record things and whatnot. They would get passed
Yes.
down orally. So the idea of passing down the cultural identity of, let's say, a village or a tribe would be to tell these stories in a way that well, the act of telling the stories itself becomes part of the tradition. And so you're saying that this is essentially a continuation of that, and trying to reclaim the way that the stories were told, without the the influence of, to steal your term here, colonizers. um so then, how do you compare, not compare, but how do you approach writing, right? Sci-fi stories with with Afro-Pantheology into the equation? Like, how do you bring those two together?
I mean, what is it? Otto C. Clarke said that sufficiently advanced technology can seem like magic. Whether you call it
Yeah,
science,
yeah.
whether you call it religion, the fact is it's all knowledge, it's all stories. All stories are the same, all knowledge is the same. It's just we create demarcations. We call some of it science, we call some of it knowledge, religion, but it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really, a lot of things intersect. It's sort of a Western way to see things as a binary, as standing separate from each other. But I tend to see things as a circle, right? As a cycle, as connecting, and most of the time it's like that. For
Mm, mm,
example, past and future, they are not necessarily different points, but connecting points in time. If you really observe the trend of things, we're moving around in a circle. So a lot of the things that we're discovering are things we had in the past before, right? So sometimes we're moving forward only to go backward, and we're moving. We seem to be moving backward to progress. For example, in Africa we had
mm,
polygamy, right? And they
mm.
said it was backward.
Yeah.
But have you heard of what do they call it now? You have triples, right? And you have what do they call
Polyamorous.
it? Polyamorous relationships now, right? Which people
Yeah,
consider
yeah,
forward
yeah.
and progressive. Do you understand?
Right,
So
right.
we're
Yeah, yeah.
moving back to those systems that we've considered backwards. What was considered backward is now considered progress, right? They also said
Mm, mm.
African
Yeah.
societies were backward. They cut down our trees and our forests. But now the world is moving forward to plant trees because it's discovered that trees are a good source of air, right? And they are good for the environment. You see what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yep. Yeah.
The fact
Yeah.
that you call it
Mm.
science does not make it different from what we call religion.
Right. Right. Okay. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. I think there's I don't know if you have any Christian background at all, but there's a passage in the Bible, and I'm not claiming to know everything about the Bible, but it says essentially there's nothing new under the sun. Right.
Yes.
It's
A
it's a
lot of
circle.
our technologies
Huh.
are built on old principles that were discovered a long time ago.
Yep. Yep. Mm. And that's good. That's good, right? I think the idea, the very essence of being a human is to explore, is to try new things. And with that, we discover new things, and then we forget about the past, and then somebody goes far back enough into the past, learns a new thing that was useful then, and then applies to modern society, and so that becomes a circle there. But as a whole, I think we're moving forward. Although we do take some steps back every now and again. So I know we're coming to the close here. Are there any final thoughts that you would like to leave to the audience, and more specifically in a way of trying to encourage those that kind of like me, that think that they lack an artistic input, and we just the idea of telling stories is just too far away from our day to day, and we just think that we can't tell stories, and you kind of put this already. You said we're all creative, like we can all tell stories. We all have stories that are worth telling. It's just some of us choose different mediums, right, of going about telling those stories. So I guess the question here is like, yeah, any final thoughts, and how can the ordinary folk that is trying to tell stories figure out their their medium of telling a story?
I mean, I would ask them to be true to themselves. I would ask them to look within
Mm,
themselves and to forget what's around them because your story is not around you. The spark to tell your story might be external, but the true story that you want to unlock lies within you.
mm. Okay, okay. The true story lies within you. Perfect. I
Yeah.
love that. Oghenechovwe. Hey, did I say that
Yeah.
right? I think I said that right. Hey.
Yeah.
Like I said, yours is not any harder than mine, Kabandana. I actually like yours
Yeah.
because there's another vowel in there. You don't have to guess if you put the A before the N or after the N. Thank you so much for stopping in, man, and sharing your story here. And do you have any books that are coming out or that are already out?
Yeah, I have a collection coming out. The one about Afro-Pantheology, collection of short stories and essays between dystopia, the road to Afro-Pantheology.
Mm, okay, love it, love it, man. Keep an eye on it. And yeah, thanks again for stopping in. And I love this conversation. Hopefully, we can have another one in the future.
Yeah, yeah, no problem. Me too.
Well,
Me too.
happy.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Happy
All right.
Wednesday to you, and till next time.